Okay, we're gonna go to our next guest, and that is Dr. Anna Piela. She has. We're gonna look at some of the studies about or of Muslim women, because a lot of people out there think that Muslim women are, let's say, oppressed. So looking at that, looking at that side, we're gonna speak to Dr. Anna Piela. Good afternoon, peace be upon you. Welcome to the Draft Time Show, Dr. Piela.
Good evening. Salam alaikum. Thank you for having me tonight.
Wa alaikum salam and jazakallah. Thank you very much for being with us today. Dr. Piela, would you agree that social cohesion is harder for Muslim women living in a Western culture, or do you think that just that just stereotypes the Muslim women?
It depends how we understand the question, really, because if we make an assumption that it's harder because Muslim women are Muslim women, then that's definitely something I would disagree with. But the process of social cohesion integration is complex, and as I read recently, somebody said it's not a one-way street. So it's basically about all members of society working together to survive and to prosper. And unfortunately, if we look at statistics, for example, about economic deprivation, labor activity for Muslim women, that suggests that they've got it harder. So just looking at numbers of economically active women generally in the UK, that's Office of National Statistics 2015, so quite recent data. 69% of women generally are active, but compared to them, only 35% of Muslim women are economically active. And I'm talking about women in the at age between 16 to 64. Sorry. And the reasons for that are not because Muslim women don't want to work, but if we look at that data closer, it's Islamophobia, it's racial and religious discrimination, it's racial profiling. So this is a big problem, and the British society and the British government really have a big job there to address this.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Muslim women are seen as very isolated, particularly because of the veil and about because of their clothing. Does your own research bear this out?
Well, the Western obsession with Muslim women's clothing is continuing, as we can see from the recent controversy, about the burkini.
Yeah.
It's never ending, and my own research with Muslim women who wear the face veil suggests that actually it is the face veil that they feel that lets them go out into society, into the public sphere, and lets them interact. Because if they didn't have it, they would prefer, there are certain Islamic laws that they choose to follow that would prevent them from that interaction. So a lot of these women say, we go out into, public sphere, and a lot of my interviewees actually said, because they are aware that, the face veil can be seen as something a little bit foreign and confusing for non-Muslims. They actually go out of their way to make those interactions happen. Women will talk to other women. One of my interviewees said that she always compliments other women on the bus about their handbags. So this is not exactly an attitude of alienation or of willing sort of segregation of whatever you like to call it. So I wouldn't say it's the veil. I would say it's probably the perceptions of the veil by others. But that's the different side, the other side of the coin, I suppose.
Okay. Dr. Piela, how important did you find from your interviews? How important do you think faith was in promoting well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being amongst the women that you interviewed?
I would say that amongst my interviewees, who were all religious women, faith was absolutely central to their lives. they felt that it was the thing that kept them going. And because a lot of my interviews were actually centered around the face veil, it was interesting how for a lot of these women who wear it, it is actually a sort of symbol of their own faith. So it almost helps them sort of move into that spiritual state of mind where it is easier to pray, where it is easier to reflect and meditate. So definitely faith was something that they actively fostered, but also they sought out to discuss faith with other women, other Muslim women, for example, in on sort of email discussion groups. That was actually the topic of my PhD, and a lot of women discussed faith, but also built social networks around that central element, and they provided emotional support to those who didn't have sisters around them, like in their physical setting. And so faith was something that led to also other sorts of interactions, social interactions and emotional support.
Don't you think that being a member of an online forum could isolate women further from their real lives? Isn't there a danger of that happening?
Well, it depends what kind of online forum you belong to and what kind of life you lead in the so-called real life. But the discussions that I analyzed, the discussions that I observed throughout my PhD research, confirmed something completely opposite. Actually, these women actively built connections with other women, and from the contributions they made, I could tell that their social lives were actually flourishing. They told stories about helping others. That they told stories how they engaged, in charitable events, how they were active, with other parents in their children's schools. But I think one very good example of helpfulness of a religious Islamic online forum for a woman like that is, when you've got converts, for example, or reverts, I suppose is the more appropriate term. Somebody might live, in the middle of a non-Muslim area without access to fellow Muslims, without access to mosques, and it could actually be, that online group that provides that sort of religious and emotional support for that person. They might not be able to attend prayers at the mosque, but they might be able to, for example, pray together on Skype. It is not unheard of, the shahadas that are made online in the presence of other Muslims, for example, on Skype. So I think this presents us with a lot of opportunities for, fostering faith and pious behavior. Especially, I think it's worth mentioning in an atmosphere where generally Muslims' involvement online is generally, demonized as something that potentially leads to things like radicalization. There is a positive side to online engagement with others. So I think it's really worth mentioning.
But then in real life, do you think that these Muslim women that you interviewed, that they wished for social cohesiveness as well, or do you think they were happy living, slightly apart from conventional society, for that matter?
Well, again, I need to unpick your question a little bit, because when we say social cohesiveness, some people mean integration, and that's I consider that a good thing. Some people, however,
let's just say integration. Are they willing to integrate?
Oh yeah,
that's
Yeah, by all means. I mean, they don't wish to assimilate, which is basically, when they would have to adopt values of the mainstream society. But it will never happen for a minority group like Muslims, for example, in the UK, because social life here is based very much around alcohol. For example, socializing in places that sell alcohol is kind of a challenge, right?
Yeah,
But
very true.
about integration, it is about integration is about developing shared values, and the interactions in public spaces, and that can perfectly happen because if we look at a lot of community initiatives in places like Bradford, Birmingham, people are coming together. They develop those shared values. Go to a school site, and you will see parents of so many different backgrounds, conversing and mixing and interacting with each other. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I think we need to be mindful that we should have the right to keep our ethnic and religious and cultural identity, not be required to give it up. But at the same time, build spaces, for
Yeah.
social interaction with others, and that's
Okay.
what is happening.
All
Um,
right.
that what
Perfect.
definitely is happening. Although there are obviously challenges, like
Yeah.
those I mentioned
Yeah.
at the beginning.
There,
Um,
there. Um, all right. Dr. Anna Piela, lecturer in religious studies at Leeds Trinity University. Thank you very much for your time. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.